Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and good Shabbos. It is, I'm not going to say it's a blustery day because it's not really windy, but it's a drizzly day. Kind of a gray and drizzly day on the 9th of July, but it is Shabbat. So the weather really doesn't factor into how we should feel because Shabbat should make us feel grateful, should make us feel refreshed, should make us feel all sorts of things that are good for us. So excuse me. So it is Shabbat here in Huntington. Like I said, the weather is not the greatest, but it's not the worst. And so let's begin our morning service on page 68 with a little bit of gratitude, thanking God for restoring our souls. Modeh ani. Modeh ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam. Modeh ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam. Shehechezarta bi nishmati v'chemla rabba emunatecha. Modeh ani lefanecha melech chai v'kayam. Continue with Ma Tovu as we warm up our voices and even our souls a little bit, warming them up as we move through Birkot HaShachar, the morning blessings. Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Va'ani berov chastecha, Ahavo ve'techa, ehesh tachave, el heichal kodshecha, b'yiratecha, el heichal kodshecha, b'yiratecha. Adonai hafti mon beitecha, u'mekol mishkan kavodecha, va'ani eshtachave b'echa, Evrecha lifnei Adonai osi, va'ani tefilati lecha Adonai, ehi ratzon Elohim, berov chastecha, aneni b'emet ishecha. Page 76. We just, a few moments ago, we thanked God for restoring our soul, and now we thank God for giving us a body in which we can house that soul. Page 76, Asher Yatzar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, Asher yatzar et ha'adam b'chokhmah, u'bara bo nekavim chalulim, galui v'yadu lifnei chizei chivodecha, שאם יפתח אחד מהם או יסתם אחד מהם, אי אפשר להתקיים ולעמוד לפניך. ברוך אתה אדוני, רופא כל בשר ומחלי לעשות. And we'll continue with Birkot HaShachar proper, the actual morning blessings. And we start with the first one, thanking God for alarm clocks. But if you read a good translation or a more literal translation, it thanks God for giving the rooster the wisdom to tell the difference between day and night. So way back in the day, the rabbis knew from alarm clocks, but they just called them roosters. Top of page 80. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, asher natan l'sechvi bina lahavchin bein yom u'bein layla. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, bokeach ivreim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, Roka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam, malbish ahumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten la'ed koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir sheina me'inai u'pnuma me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gvora. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'asok b'divrei Torah. And near the bottom of 86, O Adonai our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, the descendants and the descendants of all your people Israel, may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai hamelamed Torah li'amo Yisrael. Oh, top of 88, little piece from the Talmud here for study. Elu devarim, these are the things that are limitless, right? These are important things, and you can never do too many of them. Elu devarim she'en lehem shiur, she'adam ochel perutehem ba'olam hazeh, v'hakeren kayemet lo li'olam haba, ve'elu hein, kibud av ve'em, ugemilut chasadim, השכמת בית המדרש שחרית בערבית, והכנסת אורחים וביקור חולים, והכנסת כלה, לביאת המת, ועיון תפילה, והבאת שלום בין אדם לחברו, ותלמוד תורה כנגד כולם. Kaddish Rabbanan, always said at the end of studying a piece of rabbinic, not necessarily, or Torah, or that was with a small t, right? It could be you studied a few verses from the actual Torah, or you studied some Torah from the rabbis. But Kaddish Rabbanan is what we say. It could also be said by mourners and those who are observing a yahrzeit. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shmei Rabbah v'almad yivrach yirutei v'yamlik malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'agala b'zman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach v'olam v'lomei almayah. V'yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei v'kudshah v'richu le'elam im kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata v'amiran v'alma v'yimru amen. All Yisrael v'al Rabbanan v'al Tamidehon v'al kol Tamidei Tamidehon v'al kol man daskin v'oraita di v'yatra hadin v'di v'kol atar v'atar. Yehei lahon olchon shlama rabba, china b'chista v'rachamin, v'chayin orichin, muzinei v'bichei v'fukana, min kadam v'hon v'dishmaya v'ara v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim tovim, alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom v'imromav, hu b'rachamav yaseh shalom, alinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, amen. And now we move out of Birkot HaShachar. We've said Kaddish. Kaddish, whether it's Chatzi Kaddish or Kaddish Shalem, which I don't think shows up in this Siddur, Mourner's Kaddish or Kaddish Rabbanan, they all mark the end of a particular part of the service or a particular service in general. Now we know that at the end of every service we say Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. So that marks the end of that particular service or group of services. And in the morning, we have several services that make up our Shabbat morning service. We have, of course, Birkot HaShachar, that's one section. Now we're moving into Pesukei de Zimra, verses of psalm and praise. After that, we move into Shacharit, which is the morning service proper with the Shema and the Amidah. And then in more traditional synagogues, you have what's called the Musaf service. And that is an additional service that harkens back in memory to the Shabbat services that would take place in the temple. And in each of the services, there are a number of different Kaddishes. You have Chatzi Kaddish, the half Kaddish for just taking, and I call it like a comma in a sentence. You just take a quick pause and you're changing directions just a little bit. You're joining two sections. Kaddish Shalem is a longer Kaddish. It's called the full Kaddish, and that marks, it's like a semicolon. It's going to mark between a major section and another major section. And then, of course, there's Kaddish Yatom, the orphan's Kaddish or the mourner's Kaddish, which is like a final punkt. It's a final period. And that brings the services to a close. So we just had Kaddish Rabbanan. We're now moving into Pesukei Zimra, top of page 94, Baruch Shamar. Baruch Shamar B'haya Haolam, Baruch Hu, Baruch Oseh V'Reishit, Baruch Omer V'Yoseh, Baruch Gozer Makayim, Baruch Merachem Al Haaretz, Baruch Merachem Al Habriot, Baruch Meshalem Sachar Tov L'Re'ahav, Baruch Hayil Ad B'Kayam L'Netzach, Baruch Podeh U'Matzil, Baruch Shemo. And in English, with songs of praise, we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, for you are the source of life in the universe. One God, life of the universe, praised and glorious ruler, your name is eternal. Blessed are you, Adonai, sovereign, who is glorified through praise. Baruch atah Adonai, melech b'chulal, v'tihish b'chot. Top of page 96. Verses from Psalm 92, not the complete Psalm 92, but they leave out about 6 verses here, 8, 9, 10, 11, 5 verses. But Psalm 92 is the Psalm for Shabbat, top of 96. Mizmor shir liyom hashabat tov lehodot ladonai uzamer l'shimcha elyon להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי אסור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינור, עלי אסור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון וכינור. אוי גדול מעשיך אדוני, מעון עמקו נפשותיך, איש בר לא ידי, ידע וחסיר לא יבין את זאת. צדיק אתה המהר יפרח, כארז בלבנות יסגה שתולים, בבית אדוני, בחצרות אלוהינו יפריחו. Oh, Jehovah, Beseva, Deshenim Bera'ananim, Yiyu Lehagid, Ki Ashar Adonai, Tzuri Velo Avlatabo. Page 97. Page 97, Psalm 145. But it's okay if you don't recognize it as Psalm by its given name, Psalm 145. But you do know it by its title, and that title is Ashrei. And Psalm 145 becomes Ashrei with just a little help from some of its friends. Top of page 97. Ashrei Yoshvei Beitecha, O Jehallelucha Selah, Ashrei Am Shekach Lo, Ashrei Ha'am Shadonai Elohav, Tehillah LeDavid, Aromim Elohai HaMelech, V'Avrach Baruch Shimcha Leolam Va'ed. B'chol Yom Avarchecha V'halala Shimcha Leolam Va'ed. Gadol Adonai Hula Me'od V'Ligulato Ein Cheker. Dor L'dor Yishabach Ma'asecha U'Voratecha Yagidu. Hadar Kivod Hodecha B'divrei Miflotecha Asicha Ve'ezuz Oretecha Yomehu Ugdulatecha Asaprena Zecher Raftucha Yabihu Ve'tzit Katacha Yiranenu Chanun V'rachum Adonai Erech Apayim Ugdol Chased Tov Adonai Lakol V'rachamav Al Kol Ma'asahav Yoduch Adonai Kol Ma'asecha L'chasidecha Yivarchucha Kivod Malchutecha Yomeru Uvretecha Yedaberu Lahodir Livnei Hadam Gvorotaha Ukvod Hadam Malchutoho Malchutecha Malchut Kol Olamim Umemsheltecha B'chol Dor Vador So Mech Adonai L'chol Hanoflihim V'zokef L'chol Hakfufihim Einei Chol Elecha Yisaberu V'yata Noten Lahem Et Ochlam Be'ito Poteach et yadecha umaspia l'chol chai ratzon tzadik Adonai b'chol drachav v'chasid b'chol ma'asahav karov Adonai l'chol kol rahav l'chol asher yikruhu v'yemet v'etzon yireyav yaseh v'et shabbatam yishma v'yoshiem shomer Adonai et kol ohavahav v'et kol harashaim yashmihid V'ilat Adonai Yedaber Pihi, V'varecho Basar Shem Kodsho Leolam Va'ed, V'anachnu Nevarech Yaha, Me'ata V'yad Olam, Hallelujah. Top of page 100, we'll continue with the theme of Hallelujah. Psalm 150, it is the final psalm of the book of Psalms. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah, Bekodsho, Hallelujah, Birkia Uzo, Hallelujah, Bigvorotaha, Hallelujah, Kiro Gudlo, Hallelujah, Beteka Shofar, Hallelujah, Benevel Vechinor, Hallelujah, Betofu Machol, Hallelujah, Beminim Virugav, Hallelujah, Betziltzalei Shama, Hallelujah, Betziltzalei Trua, Kol HaNeshama Tehallel, Hallelujah. Kol HaNeshama Tehallel, Hallelujah. So the last line of Hallelujah, Kol HaNeshama Tehallel, let every breathing thing, or everything that Neshama is one of the words for breath. It's also one of the words for a soul. So everything that has a soul, everything that breathes, right, a neshama, praise God. And now we continue moving out of Sukkot de Zimra, starting to get ready for Shacharit. And we continue with the idea of the soul praising God. Top of 101, Nishmat. Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu. Min haolam va'ad haolam ein melech ela ata Elohei harushanim v'achronim Eloha kol beriyot Adon kol hatodot u'kulav berov hatishbachot. V'chalavacha אנחנו מודים אילו פינו מלא שערים קיים ולשוננו רינה כהמון גלה וזכתנו שבח. אין אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואימותינו לברך את שמך אלפי אלפים עם אבותינו ואימותינו ועמנו על כן איברים שפחת בנו ברוך. בכל שלך ישמע. כדבר שכתוב כל עצמתי תאמר לנו Adonai mi chamocha chamor leDavid, Baruchi nafshi et Adonai, v'chol krovai et Shem kodsho. So that was in the Hebrew on page 103. We end this particular piece of the davening with the words of David, Baruchi nafshi et Adonai. Right? Bless, O Lord, my soul. Or bless Adonai, O my soul. Meaning our souls not bless. We don't actually bless God. But that's a whole theological discussion. But the idea of neshama, nefesh, it's there, the idea of soul. And now we continue at the top of page 104. This is where in a traditional conservative or an Orthodox synagogue, the person who is going to be leading the Shacharit service would come forward and begin with Ha'el. This is leading us directly into the Baruch Hu, which then leads us into the Shema, which leads us into the Amidah. Top of page 104 with Ha'el. Ha'el b'tatzimutu zecha, hagadol b'chavod shemecha, hagibor l'netzach v'hanara b'norotecha, hamelech hayoshev al kisei ram v'nisaha, shochein ad maharom v'kadosh shemo, v'katuv rananu tzadikim b'Adonai, l'sharim nava tehila, v'fi yesharim tithalal, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקהלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ורינה יתפרשם מלכנו בכל דור ודור. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ולאלוהי אבותינו באמותינו, שיר ושפחה, הלל וזמרה, עוז וממשלה, נצח גדולה וגבורה, תהילה תפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול ותשבחו, אל ההודאות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלוהי העולמים. יתקדש ויתקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד ברכותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בהגלה, ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם לא מעלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמך תקודשה בריחו לעילמים כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דהמירם בעלמה ויאמרו amen. Page 108, Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu al mitzvot kriyat shema lehamlecho b'levav shalem, u'yachto b'lev tov, u'lovdo b'nefesh chafetza, u'lovdo b'nefesh chafetza. Praise you, Adonai, Our God, ruler of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us how to recite the Shema, to declare wholeheartedly God's rule, to declare earnestly God is one, and to zealously worship God. Top of page 110. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvarei choshech, oseh shalom uvarei et hakol. Hameir la'aretz l'darim aleha barachamim, u'tuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh reishit. Ma rabu ma'asech Adonai kulam b'chokma asita. Ma'aretz kinyanecha. Yiparach Adonai Eloheinu, all Shabbat Maaseh Yodecha V'yal Mirei Orsh Asita Yifaru Chasela, Or Chadash Al Tzion Ta'ir, V'nizkech Ulan Meherah Lioro, Baruch Atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. Second blessing before the Shema, also known as Ahava Rabbah. Ahava Rabbah Tanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chem Lagidola V'Tera, Chamalta Aleinu. Let's read the paragraph together in English. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion. On account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life, be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah. V'ha'erenu b'toratecha, v'dahavek l'beinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yachel levaveinu, li'ahava u'yirah et shemecha, v'lo nevosh, v'lo nikaleh, v'lo nikasher, le'olam va'ed, ki v'shei kodshecha, hagadol l'hanora b'hatachnu, Nagila v'nismecha b'shuatecha, v'havienu l'shalom me'arba kanfot ha'aretz, v'tolichenu k'mumiut li'artzeinu, ki el poel Yeshuot ata, ubanu v'charta v'keravtanu l'shimcha hagadol sela v'emet, lehodot l'chal yahedcha v'ahava, baruch atah Adonai, abocher ba'amo Yisrael, v'ahava. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, b'chol vavcha, u'b'chol nafshecha, u'b'chol me'odecha, v'hayu הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, ושיתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשופטך ובתומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ויעשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בצל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטעו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. ויציב אהוב וחביב ונורא ואדיר וטוב ויפה הדבר הזה עלינו לעולם ועד. אמת אלוהי העולם, וכן צור יעקב מגן ישענו לדור ודור, הוא קיים ושמו קיים, וכיסו נחל מלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיים. ודבריו חיים וקיימים, נאמנים ונחמדים לעולמי עולמים. ממצרים גאלתנו אדוני אלוהינו, מבית עבדים פדיתנו. על זאת שיבחו אהובים ומרמו אל ונתנו ידידים צמירות שירות ותשבחות ברכות והודעות למלך אל חי וקיים, רם ונישא גדול ונורא, משפיל גאים ומכריע, שפלים מוציא אסירים ופודה ענבים, ועוזר דלים ועולה לעמוד בעת שלום. תהילות לאל עליון ברוך הוא מבורך, תהילות לאל עליון ברוך הוא מבורך, משה בני ישראל חנו שירה בשמחה רבה ויאמרו כולם, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. שירה חדשה שירו גאולי לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמלכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל, ובדכנו מך יהודה וישראל. גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני God Yisrael. We are at the Amidah, pages 124, 126, 128, and 130, which is the Kedushah. We will chant together and then we'll go silently, as you can finish the Amidah either in the Hebrew, you could read the English translations, or you can offer up your own meditative and personal prayer during that time. But we begin 124. Adonai sifatai tiftach u'v'yagi tehilatecha. Adonai sifatai tiftach u'v'yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon,
גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיה מתים אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הטל מכלכל חיים בחסד מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים סומך נופלים ורופא חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומדומה לך מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב על יד נביאך וקרא זה אל זה ואמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו אדיר אדירנו אדוני אדוננו מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו אחד הוא אלוהינו הוא אבינו הוא מלכנו הוא מושיענו והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו לעיני כל חי אני אדוני אלוהיכם ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גודלך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Still completing your Amidah, please continue at your own pace. We're going to jump ahead to 134, and let's read the English together. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai our God, grant us your holy Shabbat as a heritage. May Israel, who sanctifies your name, rest on Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Feel like a ritzeh?
Sure.
Now, which ritzeh is it? Is it on 136 or 137?
136. Yep.
The ritzeh on the top of page 136, brought to you by the Macadamias.
Ritzeh Adonai Eloheinu, ve'amecha Yisrael, u'tefilatam Yahava tekabel, u'tehilelatzon tamid avodat Yisrael. Yisrael Hamecha, El Karov Lecho, Korah Pnei Lavadecha Bechoneinu, Shefok Ruchacha Aleinu. ותחזינה עינינו לשובך לציון. ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון, לציון.
All right, page 138. Let's read the Modim section in the middle of the page. Let's read it together. We acknowledge with thanks that you are Adonai, our God, and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives and the shield of our salvation in every generation. Let us thank you and praise you for our lives which are in your hand, for our souls which are in your care, for your miracles which we experience every day, and for your wondrous deeds and favors in every time of day, evening, morning, and noon. O good one, whose mercies never end, O compassionate one, whose kindness never fails, we forever put our hope in you. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha u'lecha na'el lehodot. And let's close out, as usual, for our Amidah with the prayer for peace, and in the morning, Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chen v'chesed v'rachamim, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael Amecha, Barcheinu Yotzreinu, Kulanu Ke'echad Ve'or Panecha, Panecha, Ki ve'or Panecha, Nahatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Torat Chaim, V'ahavat Chesed, U'tzedaka u'bracha v'rachamim, Rachamim v'chaim v'shalom, V'rachamim v'chaim v'shalom, V'tov b'einecha l'harech et amecha, Amecha Yisrael, Bechol eit ubechol sha'a, Bishlomecha, Baruch atah Adonai,
המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
I almost said ahava with love, but we already said that.
Yay.
Page, oh, I forgot the Mishnah Berach. Page 253, one of the types of Mishnah Berach are prayers for blessing. The beginning is where it gets its name, Mishnah Berach, and it's always Avotenu or the Imotenu. It's may the one who blessed our ancestors. And so we have this formula where we then ask God in a Mishnah Berach to do X for us. If you get an Aliyah to the Torah, there's a Mishnah Berach for that. There's a Mishnah Berach for an anniversary, for a birthday. There's a Mishnah Berach when the father of a newborn baby girl comes to name her at the first Shabbos the first time the Torah is read after she's born. There's a Mishnah Berach for a Brit Milah. There's all sorts of Mishnah Berach prayers. Everybody seems to think there's only one, which is the prayer for healing, which is on the list of the rabbi's prayers. It's not even close to the top. And that's the reason is that there are other prayers that have prayers for healing built into them, such as the Amidah. And so the Mishnah Berach is a special prayer, but there are many different types. And so this morning we'll recite one on 253, one of the prayers for healing. And if you have anyone who needs a little bit of extra blessing this Shabbat, physical blessing, emotional, spiritual, keep them in your thoughts and close to your heart. Mishaberach Avotenu V'Imotenu Avraham Yitzchak V'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel V'Leah Hu Yivarech Et HaCholim HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Aleihem V'Lach Limam V'Lachotam V'Lachazikam V'Yishlach Lehem Mehera Refuah Shleim Min HaShamayim Refuah HaNefesh Refuah HaGuf Hashta B'Galav Yizman Kaviv V'Namar Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen. Now the prayers for our community. Tam, how about for our congregation, please?
Sorry, page number.
Oh, I'm sorry, 258.
It's okay.
258.
I've memorized.
You should. What kind of
Work on it,
macadamias?
have I? I'm sorry.
What kind of macadamias are you?
Okay. Source of well-being, may the children of this community learn these passions from us, love of Torah, devotion and prayer, and support of the needy. May we guide with integrity, and may our leadership be in your service. May those who teach and nourish us be blessed with satisfaction, and may we appreciate their time and their devotion. Thank you, Rabbi, for your time and your devotion. Bless us with the fruits of wisdom and understanding, and may our efforts bring fulfillment and joy. Baruch atah Adonai, shodacha l'varacha yirah na'avod.
All right, Scott, that leaves the prayer for our country.
Thus says Adonai, this is what I desire, to unlock the fetters of wickedness and untie the cords of lawlessness, to let the oppressed go free, to break off every yoke. Share your bread with the hungry, and take the wretched poor into your home. When you see the naked, give clothing, and do not ignore your own kin. If you banish the yoke from your midst, the menacing hand, the evil speech, if you offer compassion to the hungry and satisfy the famished creature, then your light shall shine in darkness.
You notice what's missing there in that little piece. I mean, this is from a longer piece. It's part of the Yom Kippur Haftarah. But in this little section, which is an important section, do you know what's missing? Any talk?
Notice it to miss it.
Any talk about getting tied up in ritual and observance? This is all interacting with other people. This is all about the social order. This is all about making sure that the communities, that there's nobody hungry, that there's nobody homeless, that there's nobody without clothes. So it's interesting. It's the prophets weren't. The prophets were very seldom about religious observance other than to say that either we're doing it too much to the detriment of the social aspects, or we're doing it in order to make ourselves look good, or we're just doing it wrong. And so, but they very seldom advocate more religious observance. They want proper religious observance. And for the prophets, especially Isaiah, Jeremiah, most of the minor prophets, it was all about how we treat each other. And the punishments come, the consequences of not treating each other well or nicely is that we don't live peacefully. Shalu Shalom Yerushalayim Yishlayu Ohavayich. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May those who love you prosper. Avinu Shabbat Shamayim Zur Yisrael V'Golo Barech Yisrael. Yeah. Let's try this again. I lost my place. Avinu Shabbat Shamayim Zur Yisrael V'Golo Barech Et Medinat Yisrael Reishit Smichat Gulatenu Hagen Aleha V'Yavrat Chastecha Uvchos Aleha Sukat Shlomecha Ushlach Orcha Va'amitcha L'Rasheha Sareha V'Yoetzeha V'Takneim V'Eitzah Tova Milfanecha V'Natata Shalom Ba'aretz V'Simchat Olam V'Yashveha V'Namar Amen. O Heavenly One, Protector and Redeemer of Israel, bless the state of Israel, which marks the dawning of hope for all who seek peace. Shield it beneath the wings of your love. Spread over it the canopy of your peace. Send your light and truth to all who lead and advise, guiding them with your good counsel. Establish peace in the land and fullness of joy for all who dwell there. Amen. All right, friends. Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.
So, I learned recently that someone that I know and very much respected passed away, and I want to talk just a little bit about him because for the next year I want to dedicate my learning that I do personally and the learning that we do together as a congregation to the memory of a man named Werner Reich. Now you can tell by that name that he wasn't born in Poughkeepsie. And he just passed away yesterday, and he survived 3 death camps. He went to Auschwitz, I believe, as a child, and progressed, if that's the right word, to other camps. But while he was in Auschwitz, he met a man named Herbert Novelli, and Herbert Novelli was a magician, and he taught young Werner some tricks to keep his mind occupied, and Werner mastered those tricks and kept practicing them and practicing them and practicing them. And he had a book written about him, and it's called The Death Camp Magicians, because after Werner was liberated and had a life, he became a magician. He was a magician, and he used his magic that he learned to teach others, adults and children, about the Holocaust and his experiences. And so there's an adult version, The Death Camp Magicians, and then there's one for kids called The Magician of Auschwitz. And I had the great opportunity to not only meet him, but have him come to a synagogue where I was the rabbi and talk about his experiences. And one of his friends is also a friend of mine, Joshua Jay, who is probably one of the best magicians in the world. If you go online, you will find Joshua Jay's name all over the internet for his magic. He's written a number of books. He's been on Penn and Teller Fool Us. He's fooled Penn and Teller. He's been on, what's the Friday night thing that I record? World's Greatest Magic, I think. But and he and Joshua and Werner were good friends. And so Josh and Werner came, and Werner talked about his experience, and Josh showed the magic that Werner had learned and taught for all of his adult life. the interesting thing is, the ironic thing is that once both Werner and Novelli survived the Holocaust, and they only lived a few miles from each other on Long Island and didn't know about it until close to the end of Novelli's life. They were so close and yet so far away. They had lost track of each other, and there it is. But the books are very good. If you go online, you'll see it's Werner Reich, R-E-I-C-H, and he did a number of interviews and talks, and you could continue to learn from him. And so may his memory be a blessing to us always, and may he always rest in peace. So there are few things in life that give me really, really good pleasure than not. Yeah, let's try that over. There are few things in life that give me more pleasure than a tricky crossword puzzle or a very big jigsaw puzzle. I'm content to sit for hours letting my mind mull over the puzzles that occasionally fill up what free time I have. Often when I have something to think about or something big to write, I'll start a new jigsaw puzzle, and my mind will achieve a meditative Zen-like state, and usually I'll have the answer to a question or my plan for writing after a few hours. So while reviewing this week's Torah portion, I realized that it includes one of the most puzzling stories in the entire Torah. So I broke out a new puzzle in honor of this week's Torah conundrum. So before we get to the conundrum, we need to take a look at the background. This week's Parsha, puzzling as it may be, is one of the saddest. Both Miriam, Moshe's older sister, and Aharon, his older brother, die, leaving Moshe effectively alone. But it's Miriam's death that starts the dominoes falling. So here's the scenario. Miriam, Moshe's older sister, his friend, his confidant, the one who protected him while he was floating in the Nile and helped raise him after he was rescued by Pharaoh's daughter, Miriam dies. And suddenly, Bnei Yisrael has no water as they are wandering through the Midbar. There was a well that followed them because of Miriam and her selfless service. So wherever they went, while Miriam was with them, they had water. Not only does the well dry up, the oasis where they are camped also dries up, leaving them without any water and leaving their animals without water. And so, as we have come to expect, when faced with a problem, the people complained to Moshe, once again suggesting that it would have been better for them to die in Mitzrayim, to die in Egypt, than to die in the wilderness. As usual, Moshe goes to God, who tells him to gather the people and to speak to a large rock that was nearby. I often think that was God being funny, because often when Moses spoke to the people of Israel, it was like talking to a rock. But after he would speak to the rock would bring forth water for the Israelites and their animals. And so far, this seems par for the course. The people complain, Moshe goes to God, God provides a miracle, everybody is happy. However, this time, things are a bit different. After visiting with God, Moshe chastises the people, saying, Shim'una hamorim, Hamin hasela hazeh notzi lachem mayim. He says, listen, you rebels, shall we get water out of this rock for you? He then strikes the rock, not once, but twice. Although it wasn't what God wanted, the water did indeed flow from the rock. But God severely punishes Moshe and Aharon because of their disobedience, and tells them that they both will die before entering the promised land. This week's Parsha also records Aharon's death. So for many years, I was puzzled by God's harsh punishment. Many commentaries have been written about this, but no matter what I read, I was never satisfied with the answer. The punishment didn't seem to fit the crime. Granted, Moshe didn't do exactly what God wanted, but the difference between what he did and what God commanded, not so great. So is the lesson that we are to take away from this is that no one should ever change a command, ever so slightly, and if they do, it warrants a death sentence? Perhaps this is a lesson about the inexplicable nature of our fate. Things happen to us that we don't deserve. We make mistakes, and the consequences are sometimes much greater than anyone could imagine or expect. Compared to some other behavior found in the Torah, what Moshe and Aharon did at the rock seems pretty minor. But I'm glad to say that our tradition, doesn't accept this as the sole reason for the punishment. This punishment, which doesn't fit the crime, presents God acting in an irrational manner. Our great sages could not accept the idea that a loving God, a God who loves compassion, could act this way. So they looked for other explanations for the harsh punishments. One suggests that Moshe and Aharon didn't mention God when they were addressing the people. They don't give God any of the credit for this miracle. Instead, they seem to take the people's complaints as a challenge to their leadership. They take the people's attack personally. And God's response, if this is what God's response is, seems to be asserting that God needs to be sanctified, that God needs to be given credit. And to me, this seems a little peevish on God's part. Other commentators suggest that Moshe and Aharon are punished because of and by their anger. They lash out at the people. They call them rebels. They mock them, instead of telling the people that God is about to perform a miracle, showing Bnei Yisrael great kindness and love. One of the reasons I've noticed that why God doesn't lash out at the people, other times when they've wanted water, when they've wanted something, God lashes out. God gets angry because the children of Israel are complaining. But in this case, God doesn't get angry because when they complain, and they do complain, they are whining a little bit, they say, but what will happen to our animals and to us? So they're thinking, or at least this part in my mind, at least they're thinking about something other than themselves. And so they're worried about, hey, we've got animals, and now they're going to starve. They're going to die of thirst, and that's just not right. And so maybe that's why God wasn't angry at the people, but yet Moshe, he gets angry. I don't think any of us would have a problem understanding Moshe and Aharon's anger and bitterness. Earlier in the Parsha, Miriam dies. The brothers are grieving, and their grief is interrupted by the people complaining. And their reaction to this suggests that their leadership position has become too much of a burden for them. They respond to the people not with love, but with anger. And once this happens, it's clear that they can no longer lead. And God decides to remove them from their positions of authority. For me, the takeaway from this parsha is that angry leaders are not true or effective. True leaders, those who are worthy of our respect and our emulation, are those who respond, not react. They respond to their people with love and compassion. True leaders attempt to meet people where they are and to help them solve their problems. True leaders check their egos, their need to have themselves, their egos stroked at the door. Moshe and Aharon may have started out as very effective leaders, but years of responsibility have tired them. Leadership is also about vision. Leadership is about looking toward the future. Moshe and Aharon once had that vision, but they stopped moving forward with it. Instead, they fell back on old behaviors and attitudes. In the end, they lost their vision and their positions as leaders. Our leaders today, political, religious, whatever, should look at this week's Parsha and heed its lesson. Leadership is not about ego or personal glory. It's about putting a vision, a worthy vision, into action. And that vision, no matter how impressive or how wonderful, needs the support of the people. The people will not support a vision if they feel that their leaders don't care about them. Moshe and Aharon learned this lesson too late. Perhaps if our leaders learn from the lesson of Moshe and Aharon, they can become true leaders with a true vision. Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom, good Shabbos.
All righty. I think I woke them up now. That was a wake up. All right, let's start moving towards the close of our service. It'll be page 282 for Helenu.
עלינו לשבח לדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארץ הזאת, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגבור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אינו אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת עינו.
ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו echad. We continue to observe Shloshim for Matt Kolker and Rena Stern. This week we observe the following yard sites: Jerome Cohen, Barbara Silverstein's father; Max Alfred Hassel, Pauline's cousin; Saul Macinter, Gazella's husband; Lake A. Brown, Edna Baker and Irvin Brown's brother; Herb Kolker, husband of Betty, father of Steve, David, Deborah, and Larry, Matt's uncle; Albert Finkelstein, Mimi Tan's relative; Martin Carnes, Joanne Gellen's father; Vicki Rosalind Kalfus, Barbara Silverstein's sister; Alfred Greenstein, Miriam's husband, Murray's father; Louis Lerner, Ike's father; Janie Sampson Breskin, relative of Fred Ziffer; Samuel Kind, Joanne Hinton's brother; Adele Boos, Izzy's wife, mother of Stan and Franklin; Ian S. Miller, relative of Tony Miller; Helen White, relative of Valerie; Sarah Gersman, Jack Steinberg's grandmother. Grace Kaplan, Nordy's wife, Pauline's sister-in-law. Mike Shrinsky, Sherry Solochek's uncle. Leon Seligson, Mary Lee Grazer's father. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May their memories be a blessing to us all, and may they all rest in peace. Mourner's Cottage is found on page 294. Yitkadal, Yitkadash, Shmei Rabbah, Belma, Divrach, Yiruteh, Viamlik, Malchuteh, Bechayechon, Viomechon, Uchaye, Dechol Beit Yisrael, Va'agala, Bizman Kari, Vimru, Amen. Yehe, Shmei Rabbah, Mevorach, V'olam, Lameo Maya. Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitramam, V'yitnaseh. V'yithadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shmei, V'kudashah, V'yichu. Le'elam, Min Kol, Birchata, V'shirata, Tushbachata, V'nechamata, V'amirah, V'yalma, V'yimru, Amen. Yehe, Shlama, Rabbah, Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu, V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'yimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, B'mromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'yal Kol Yisrael, V'yimru, Amen. All right, friends, Shabbat Shalom and good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom.
And good Shabbos.
Got the macadamias here. All is well in the world. Let's see, a couple of quick announcements. Services tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Then let my people know this week, but we pick up next week, meandering through the Midrash. So please join us then. Monday night is deep dive into Genesis, 6:30 on Zoom. Tuesday night is the Board of Trustees meeting at 7 o'clock. Wednesday night, we've got the Yiddish choir, the best little Yiddish choir from coast to coast, the choir with the most. It's brought to you by the Macadamias. And are we still dealing with saucy Jewish women?
Well, actually, we've been doing a sneak peek into the early writings of the Freud the musical.
Freud, the musical. Yeah. All right.
We also did some klezmer music theory, which was very fun.
Klezmer music theory. Now, tell me, where else in the world you will hear that outside of the environs of a klezmer community, right? And there are very few of those exist, but apparently one of those exists here. So not only do you get klezmer music, not only do you get saucy women, not only do you get all sorts of fun things, you get klezmer music theory worth the price of admission. The place should be filled with people. I'm telling you this. We're going on the road with this group. This is wonderful. But that's Wednesday, Zoom, 7 o'clock. And then we'll be back on Friday night for more services. So fairly busy week. Lots of things going on. My mom's birthday is this week, so that's always a good thing. I think that's at the top of my list this week. And so, yeah. All right. So let us close out with Ein Keloheinu, page 322, and then some Kiddush. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadoneinu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Chadoneinu, Mi Chemalkeinu, Mi Chemoshienu. Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adoneinu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adoneinu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adoneinu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru Avoteinu, Lefanecha Ketoret Hasamim. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat לדורותם ברית העולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת,
לדורותם ברית העולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם. כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית העולם. זכור יום השבת לקודשו, 6 ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך, ביום השביעי שבת לאדוני אלוהיך, ולא תעשה כל מלאכה אתה ובנך וביתך עבדך ואמתך בהמתך וגרך אשר בשעריך, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, את הים ואת כל אשר בם, וינח ביום השביעי. על כן ברך אדוני את יום השבת ויקדשהו. סברי, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן.
It was a good day for grape juice. All right, we've got one person in the interwebs saying hello. Oh, it's Mom. Look at that, Mom. Shabbat Shalom to all from Rabbi's Mom and Cliff, enjoying our time in Huntington with Rabbi. Well, yes, they are, apparently. But that's very good. Thank you, Mom and Cliff. What was that? The macadamias say happy birthday to Mom. All right, friends. Oh, Judy Lundy, Shabbat Shalom. Good to be among the upright and healthy. Physically upright, yes. Morally upright, we'll have to talk, Judy. Trust you will enjoy this beautiful God-given day. I'm not talking about the macadamias. They are upright, moral, and healthy. Thank you, Judy. Hope you are well, and you too enjoy this beautiful day. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Good Shabbos. We'll see you soon, and be careful out there.